So, okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Vern Williams. I'm the president of the Central Mississippi affiliate of NAMI, Mississippi. And with us is Latasha Willis, and she's really the brainchild behind our program tonight. She's prepared a program for us on suicide, and we'll get started with that in just a minute. But I'm going to let anybody, I see we've got several people joining us. Anybody, we've got Jocelyn and Ingram and somebody joining us by iPhone. Jocelyn or Ingram, would you guys like to introduce yourselves? And Michael, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say anything.
Like Dr.
Hi, my name is Ingram, and I'm in North Mississippi.
Okay.
And I've been in social work since 2013.
Okay. We're glad you could join us tonight. How'd you find out about us?
I got an email because I went to one of the conferences in Hattiesburg about 3 years ago, and I've been getting emails ever since.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're terribly glad you could join us.
Okay, you're welcome.
Well, good evening to everyone. I'm Jocelyn Miles Mathis, and I've been part of NAMI since I think 2020. And so I am a certified peer support, and I also have taken several classes in suicide prevention and grieving from suicide. So I'm excited that NAMI is also now presenting this webinar, and hope there are many more, because right now with the pandemic, we have so many people. Matter of fact, at my job, we had to do a watch because someone was threatened to commit suicide. So we need to be preventive in how to counteract the if we can stop or help someone to know that suicide is a permanent solution to something temporary. So we can reverse that. And thank you for letting me speak.
All right, well, we're terribly glad you could join us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yes, I am Mangle Shanks. I'm with Building Healthy Military Communities. And basically what I do is across the state, I help develop strategic partnerships to help our service members and our veterans in their areas of need. And I am a state coordinator for my organization. And what I do as a state coordinator, we have various areas that we target across the state. And for our military, I target things like tobacco cessation, physical and nutritional, as well as, I don't know if I said tobacco cessation, I think I did. And suicide is one of the things that I target as well. So anytime I see anything related to suicide prevention, and I am affiliated with NAMI too. I have been for quite a few years. And so that's, I did get an email. So that's how I came across your, about the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was muted. Where are you located?
I live here in Jackson. I live in Jackson.
Good.
So glad to see you all here tonight. As you know, you may have heard in the news, there have been some high-profile suicides have taken place, which was the inspiration behind this particular discussion. Instead of a typical affiliate meeting, we felt that this was the time to address it, because as those who are trained in suicide prevention, sometimes when someone else hears about another person commits suicide, it sort of emboldens them to do the same. So we felt the need to, just, even if people may have heard this several times, we just felt the need to remind them of, the signs and symptoms, and also to, for a self-evaluation as well. If you've been having any sort of suicidal ideation or anything like that, that help is possible. And as Jocelyn said, it is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So, all right, if everyone is ready.
I'd like to just mention, we got Trey Lynn. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Joining us from.
Oh, that's Tracy Stopson.
Okay. Hey.
Hi, Tracy. How you doing?
She's muted.
Yeah, she's still muted. Okay. All right, no problem. Well, I'll just say that Tracy is with the developing affiliate NAMI Coastal Mississippi.
Okay,
Yeah. And Monica and I were the trainers when she took the peer-to-peer leader training a few years ago. So she's trained in that as well.
okay.
Hi, sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my computer set up. I'm running a couple minutes behind.
We're
Oh,
glad to have
I
you.
get that. That happens to me a lot. So that's fine. Don't feel bad at all. Okay. But just glad to have you tonight. Glad to see you. Okay. So what we're going to do is first I'm going to show a brief virtual program. In addition to my role with NAMI Mississippi and NAMI Central Mississippi affiliate, I also work for Jackson Hines Library System as a social media web services coordinator, where I manage social media accounts, website, graphic design, things like that. And I also make videos for them. And they're familiar with my story. So one of the branch managers at one of the libraries, Meg Evers Library, she asked me to create a video on behalf of her library about suicide prevention. At the time, it was in September. So this was for National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So that's what this particular video is about. The video is about 15 minutes long. But once we finish this video, we'll go into our discussion. So I'm glad we have some experts on here who'll be able to shed some light on what things people can do. So one moment while I get the video loaded and we'll get started. Okay, once I start playing, please confirm that you can hear, okay?
The following program contains descriptions of suicide and sensitive themes. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, my name is Latasha. The Medgar Evers Library asked me to talk to you because September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And because of my background, I wanted to talk to you about suicide prevention, mainly because I am a suicide survivor. I'm sharing my picture because I want you to be aware that on the outside, someone who is dealing with suicidal thoughts may look pretty average. A person who's thinking about suicide doesn't have a certain look. You never know. You just never know. According to Merriam-Webster.com, suicide is the act or an instance of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally. Suicidal thoughts, much like mental health conditions, can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, or background. In fact, suicide is often a result of an untreated mental health condition. Suicidal thoughts, although common, should not be considered normal and often indicate more serious issues. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, a time to raise awareness on this stigmatized and often taboo topic. 78% of all people who die by suicide are male. Although more women than men attempt suicide, men are nearly 4 times more likely to die by suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34 and the 10th leading cause of death overall in the United States. The overall suicide rate in the U.S. has increased by 35% since 1999. 46% of people who die by suicide had a diagnosed mental health condition. While nearly half of individuals who die by suicide have a diagnosed mental health condition, research shows that 90% experienced symptoms. How prevalent are serious thoughts of suicide each year in the United States? Well, 4.8% of all adults, 11.8% of young adults aged 18 to 25, 18.8% of high school students, and 46.8% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual high school students have considered suicide. Some of the highest rates of suicide in the United States are among Native American, Alaska Native, and non-Hispanic white communities. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than straight youth. Transgender adults are nearly 12 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population, and suicide is a leading cause of death for people held in local jails. In the age of the COVID-19 pandemic, now more than ever, it's important to talk about suicide prevention, since the rate of anxiety and depression may have increased among many due to isolation and concern about illness and death. During National Suicide Prevention Month, mental health advocates, prevention organizations, survivors, allies, and community members unite to promote suicide prevention awareness. This includes National Suicide Prevention Week, which is the Monday through Sunday surrounding World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th. World Suicide Prevention Day is a time to remember those affected by suicide, to raise awareness, and to focus efforts on directing treatment to those who need it most. It's common to believe that if you think someone is having suicidal thoughts and you want to talk about it with them, you think that they will be encouraged to die by suicide. However, the opposite is the case. You are more likely to prevent a suicide attempt if you bring it up. So, what should you do if you think a person is having suicidal thoughts? Well, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline has some tips on how you can intervene. First, ask the person directly if he or she is having suicidal thoughts or ideas, has a plan to do so, and has access to lethal means. Sample questions include, are you thinking about killing yourself? Have you ever tried to hurt yourself before? Do you think you might try to hurt yourself today? Have you thought of ways that you might hurt yourself? Do you have pills or weapons in the house? Now, as uncomfortable as these questions may be, this won't increase the person's suicidal thoughts. It will give you information that indicates how strongly the person has thoughts about killing him or herself. Take seriously all suicide threats and all suicide attempts, because a past history of suicide attempts is one of the strongest risk factors for death by suicide. Most importantly, there is no evidence that no suicide contracts prevent suicide. In fact, it may just give you a false sense of reassurance. Next, listen and look for red flags for suicidal behavior indicated by the mnemonic is path warm. I stands for ideation. Threatened or communicated. Have they indicated at any time that they've considered suicide? S is for substance abuse. Increase in substance abuse or excessive substance abuse. Purposeless. Does a person indicate that they feel they have no reason to live? Anxiety. agitation, or insomnia. Do you see those in this person? T is for trapped. Does a person feel there is no way out of their situation? H is for hopelessness. Does a person indicate that they feel there is no hope for the future? W is for withdrawing. Is the person withdrawing from friends, family, or society in general? Anger. Does it typically seem to be uncontrolled anger at that? Rage, or seeking revenge against someone? Recklessness. Does the person tend to commit risky acts or not thinking ahead before doing something? Do they tend to fly off the handle? And M is for mood changes, especially if mood changes are dramatic. Major mood swings or ups and downs. Do you see that in this person? And finally, act. If you think the person might harm him or herself, do not leave the person alone. Say, I'm going to get you some help. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255. You'll be connected to the nearest available crisis center. Or go to SAMHSA's Mental Health Services Locator or Substance Abuse Treatment Facility Locator online. Now, the protocol I just mentioned is from a suicide risk assessment that's recommended for counselors, but I felt that this information would be helpful for the general public, just so you're aware of what to look for. Otherwise, remembering all the information may be a challenge for you. So be sure to either take a screenshot or write down this number. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Counselors are available at that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's also a chat option on their website, suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also call 911 for assistance, especially if the person has already started the process of attempting to die by suicide, because it's a life-threatening situation at that point. Let's say the person doesn't really want to talk to someone, or maybe you're considering suicide and you don't want to talk to someone directly. What you can do is send a text. Text the word NAMI, N-A-M-I, to 741-741 to start a text conversation with a counselor. I'll note here for future reference, in 2022, look for an announcement regarding the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There will be a new 3-digit number similar to 911 to make it easy for people to remember. The number that should be launched around July of 2022 is 988. Now, it's not launched yet, so please continue to note the 1-800 number. So once again, if you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can also start a chat at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. For someone who is in immediate danger, please call 911 for assistance. If you prefer to text instead of speak to someone over the phone, you can text the word NAMI to 741-741. Speaking of NAMI, NAMI Mississippi, the state chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also has crisis resources on its website, NAMIMS.org. That's NAMIMS.org. For general information, you can call NAMI Mississippi at 601-899-9058 for information about support groups and education programs. Note that this number is not a crisis line. You can also email NAMI Mississippi at stateoffice@namims.org. That's stateoffice@namims.org. Oh, and one more thing. Even though I did list some signs and symptoms of someone who may have suicidal ideation, note that some people who are considering suicide may not show any sort of symptoms that would indicate sadness or frustration. Some people are able to put up a front that everything is okay when deep down they are very troubled. So keep that in mind, and if you suspect that a person may be having suicidal thoughts, go ahead and start that conversation. It can be in person, over the phone, or a text message. But just get that conversation started. It could save a life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Latasha. I thought that was excellent. Let's go around the horn and see if anybody has anything to add. I'd only like to say that the 988 number goes into effect on July 16 of this year. However, the 1-800-273 talk line will still be available. So either one,
Right. That's
beginning
correct.
July 16. So does anybody have any comments about what we've just watched, or comments in general?
Latasha, I just wanted to say kudos on the presentation. That was one to be noted. And what was so nice about it, and if you have to say it in a nice way, is that you were transparent. And that's what we need to see when someone, I call it ugly shoes, when someone have walked through a situation and there's no end. And when someone can say, I have been there, you know, because I know myself, I'm a survivor of suicide. So I do understand that, but to see more transparent people, and I also work with veterans, because today we had a welfare call for one that was about to take their life. And so it is different when one, and then it's someone who have never actually could try to attempt suicide or know someone or family related, because I've dealt with people who've lost their children behind that. You find at the same time that those who have maybe have never, you know, you cannot be clueless, because when someone want to pour their heart out, we have to be active listeners. So with that, and if you don't know what to say, then call someone, because we can't be a hero when you don't know. You can only try to help and get someone that's, you know, familiar with it to help them. So thank you. I appreciate that. That was beautiful. I like to have a copy, if you, with your permission and NAMI's permission, to share that. Excuse me, with some of the veterans and some of the people that I'm in this circle now with. So that's was well presented. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. The video actually belongs to the library system, but it's public. So I put the YouTube link in the chat. So you're welcome to, you know, save that link, and that way you'll be able to share it with whoever you like.
Thank you.
Okay. And also, as we're chatting, Auburn is putting in some additional links to the put in a link for the upcoming 988 number for the suicide prevention lifeline.
Yeah, that's one. The second one I'm putting up is the link to the various mobile crisis services around the state, which are a resource that you can call. You determine what county you live in, and call that particular county to get the mobile response teams from the local community mental health services.
Right. And as far as Hines Behavioral Health Services, the person over the mobile crisis unit, Dr. Tiffany Anderson Washington, she's also the treasurer for NAMI Central Mississippi affiliate as well.
Now, the third link I put up there was just the NAMI national link to various information about getting help. But
Okay. Be sure to note those, because when I share this video, I'm going to include those links in the description, and that way they can go in.
Yeah, those were, I think that all of those were mentioned in the video, but there are, the links additionally.
Right. Then the fourth link is from NAMI Mississippi. It's our crisis, if in crisis page. So it has some local and national links. You'll see links varying from, as I mentioned, Suicide Prevention Lifeline to NAMI Nationals Hotline, as well as very specific numbers, like for domestic violence, for people in the LGBT community who are troubled, as well as youth in crisis. It's all kinds of numbers on there that you can pull from there. So there is help out there. It's just a matter of raising awareness as to where to go and what to do. That's one of the reasons why I'm thankful that we have the option of being online in order to share information, because it makes it a little bit easier than it was back in the day. Because when my suicide attempt was in 2002, so we were kind of there. We had the internet, but it wasn't quite as robust as we have it now.
What did you turn to at that time, Latasha?
Friends, because I didn't know where else to go. But fortunately, I was seeing a counselor. So I had spent the night with family that day, and then the next day I called my counselor, and he said you should go, get checked in. And
Right.
So I was hospitalized for 10 days. And during that time, I did everything for like group therapy, arts and crafts. I painted a rug. Hey, watch movies, puzzles, just different things to keep you active. They had it on the schedule. So and I got to know the people there. It was like when they discharged me, it was like, on one hand, I was glad to be discharged because I could do what I want to do. But on the other hand, I was going to miss those people that I met there, because I knew I probably wouldn't see them again, very unlikely. So it was quite an experience. But as far as that particular time, other than that, I think if I just didn't do anything at all, I'm not sure how far I would have gotten if I didn't go to the hospital.
Well, you were out, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal story, Latasha. I'm glad to see that you were blessed. So many people are not to to get to that point and ask for help. So that is a blessing. And thank you so much for sharing. And I think your story will be, as it is shared, it would be very beneficial to a lot of people. Because as you were sharing your story, there's a lot of people that you see that seem to be doing just well, but behind the scenes they are not. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm.
You're welcome, and that's why I continue to share it, because I know there's some people who just aren't there yet. They just aren't there yet. So
right,
to encourage someone to take that first step, my hope is that if I share mine, if they'll be encouraged to at least talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily have to be as open as I am, but they can
yeah
be able to talk to somebody to discuss what they're going through.
Yeah. Well, you know, when we are collecting data, whichever word whoever use it, you know, we always say, you know, look at the data. But then data is good and you need it, but the stories behind the data, it makes it what makes it really real. So the story behind, you know, I've never attempted suicide, and I could talk about it because what I read and what I've learned, and give them information. But someone that has actually gone through it comes from a different angle, and it could be more beneficial for those that may be having some ideation, that kind of thing. So I put my number in the chat, so I need you to give me a call. I would like for you to give me a call.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem.
Mhm.
And speaking of, you know, people, you know, putting up a front as, you know, that everything's okay. Social media makes that really easy now. I mean, you can
Yeah.
look like everything is perfect. You can give
Yes.
yourself a new waistline, your hair, your makeup is on fleek. It still say fleek. You know, you can, you know, you have makeup filters. It's so much you can do now to just completely look like somebody else. But you know, deep down they're just dying, but they're using social media to try to override that and make it look like everything's okay because they want to keep that front going. And then,
Yes.
so then it's like by the time somebody says, yo, so-and-so passed away last night, and they're like, what? You know, it's complete shock because they put up such a good front where everything was perfect that they had no idea. You know, and some people are good at this online and in person. Some people, hey, how you doing? Happy Monday. You know, like everything's, you know, just fine. Next thing you know, they're gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know you were talking earlier about the high profile. I know we just had one, you know, this week, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Miss
I,
America 2019.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
You would have no idea, you know, no
Right.
idea. Yeah.
Right.
And in working with the military, you know, right now, I think we're up to like 22, an average of 22 veterans of military, you know, die daily from suicide. So
Wow.
we're trying to impact that. I'm on the governor's challenge against for suicide prevention. So that's one thing that we're
What,
trying to work with and trying to identify how we can prevent suicide prevention as much as possible.
can I ask you, what drives those military suicides? I've heard those numbers and I've never really understood it.
Well, you know, it can go for anywhere from what PTSD, you know, stress. They're not able to disconnect, you know, from the military, you know, from where they've been. And
Just to,
sometimes it's just uh, being alone, you know, because many things have changed if they've been in the military for so long. They're not able to, you know, come back and be a true civilian anymore. So it's just a plethora of things, you know, why.
right, right,
Yeah. So you can
right.
never just really
The
say one.
numbers, yeah, I've seen those numbers. They're really staggering to
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
Sharon Brown has joined. Hello, Sharon. Glad to have you.
Hi, Sharon. I also put a link in the chat since we're talking about military. NAMI has a program called NAMI Homefront.
Yes, I'm familiar with it. Yes.
Right. NAMI Homefront Mental Health Resources. You get information about mental health conditions, treatment options, tips for self-care, communication strategies, and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. And they recently made it like a virtual, like an on-demand type setup.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a link in there so you can learn more about that. Now, if you follow NAMI Mississippi on Eventbrite, you'll see like signups for NAMI Homefront, and they'll send you like the information on how to log in and
Yeah.
start an account and get going.
Yeah. So I think that's where I have, because I've been working with the local NAMI. I have, and I think that's how I got the email.
Oh, okay.
You know, to join, to learn about this meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so as far as anyone else's advice regarding suicide. In general, what would you recommend to the average person watching this video who suspects that they have a friend, family member, coworker, anyone like that may be experiencing suicidal ideation? What do you suggest that they do?
Hey, this is Tracy. Just real quick, this weekend, actually, I got my certification in mental health first aid. And at the very end of it, we discussed specifically that. And the one thing is say something. If
Yeah.
you're noticing something that they're, disheveled or just not acting like themselves, I mean, they may not outwardly sometimes, but it could be just little telltale signs that you're like, something's just not right. And to me, one of the biggest things that I took away from that class was don't be afraid to say something. Pull them to the side and say, hey, are you okay? Is there anything going on? Or, do you need to talk about anything? Or, just to kind of start the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, for a regular person who might not have ever been through this or gone through it personally, to me, that would be a strong message to get out there is, talk about it, start the conversation, remove the stigma. Obviously, we say that all the time, but, it's still out there and we're making leaps and bounds. Yes. And I think with the pandemic, we've seen it talked about even more because it's become increasingly obvious and it's affecting more and more people, and people who may not have experienced it before are experiencing it. So, that's the awareness and not being afraid to go to somebody and start that conversation.
Yes, I agree.
Good point.
And also, I was just to add to that, is for individuals that have concern for others and asking that question, thank you for not, for them not to be afraid to ask the question. That's one thing, because I had taken a class, I think some years back. I think it was a mental health awareness class. And that was the first time that I heard, to ask, are you thinking about committing suicide? Everybody I won't say everybody, but before that class, I thought that you should not ask them. And so asking that question will be helpful to them. And also to arm yourself with some type of resources. In addition to asking that question, if you talk with someone and they're thinking about it, make sure that you come back and provide some type of information, connect them with some type of resource, and follow up with that person. Don't just let them, once you ask them the question, and if you get a positive yes, make sure you do all that you can to follow up with that person to get them some help.
And I think just based exactly on what you're saying, and Latasha, your presentation was amazing. And the very beginning of it really kind of just pulls you in immediately to the emotional side of the story. And it makes you put a face to the situation, and it makes it real, which some people, have never experienced. But the resources is huge, and ask them if they have a plan. Are you thinking about it? Do you have a plan? Because you can go from somebody who is struggling to you need to call 911. I mean, you can, based on the conversation, if they have a plan, when they're going to do it, where, and they actually, and not everyone's going to reveal that. But if you've been talking to that person and you've been, checking on them, providing them the resources, giving them that information, which that's the other thing. A lot of people just don't have the resources or know where to go or who to talk to.
I would like to say, if I can interrupt, is that everything I've heard has been, I can understand that. But at the same time, another thing that I have not heard is that you also have to become an active listener. You have to also hear actually what they're saying, because I like to put conflict, problem solving in that, and let them talk and say, well, look, that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And then that normally catch them like, what do you mean? Because we all in life, we all go through things. And then when you can be transparent, and if you've been in that shoe, I call it ugly shoes or what have you, then I also can say, well, you know, I've experienced that or this, and then share it. But then it's not about it's about listening to their story. My daughter's coming in. It's about their stories coming in, and then listening, and then say, well, I know someone we can get help. We can call the suicide hotline or what have you. We can call the veteran crisis line. And a lot of times, and then as the lady said about veterans, I work at one of the CBOC clinics. And I found that a lot of the veterans, when you go to the veteran, you have some providers and personnel that will not actually listen to what they're saying. Yes, we have PTSD, we have all the mental diagnosis that one could have. But I found when, because there's just last week and week before last, this one particular vet, Marine, he asked me when he saw me, I need you to walk with me and to actually talk, because I see how people can differentiate and think because he's homeless, that his voice doesn't matter. And we have to respect and then not look at the size of a person, but listen to the content of what they're saying. And so I just wanted to add that to that. Thank you.
And you also bring up a very good point, and that's
Yeah.
another word, that being non-judgmental, making sure that person doesn't feel like they're being judged, and you are exactly right. Listen more than you talk. Don't make it
Yes.
about you. Don't tell them to snap out of it, or, you know, just be that person that they can listen to non-judgmentally.
Exactly. I agree too.
I think this is an excellent time for everybody to be informed about the resources that are available, because not only, you know, are the veterans experiencing these suicides, but COVID just goes on, and you know,
Mhm.
it's taking a horrible toll. I was just looking at some headlines just a minute ago about and I call those up. Alarming number of teenage girls attempting suicide during the pandemic. My wife had long COVID and killed herself. We must help others. And so it goes on and on, you know, the ramifications of and the toll that is taken on mental health as well as physical health. So it's a time that we need to arm ourselves, all of us, with the knowledge to help people who are struggling, and to keep, you know, and keep tabs on people, you know, who are isolated.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I want to mention briefly, Tracy, you mentioned you were recently trained in mental health first aid. I put a link in the chat to the website, mentalhealthfirstaid.org. You can learn more about that training. I took it several years ago. I need to retake it, as a matter of fact. But if you go to that website, you will find those who are facilitating training in your area. You can see the dates and times and everything, and then, you know, find out how to sign up. NAMI Mississippi was offering this prior to the pandemic, so I'm hoping that you know, after we finally get out of this COVID treadmill, hamster wheel, whatever this is, we'll be able to do it again.
Yeah. Mississippi State offers the training as well for free. They've been offering it since the pandemic, and I think it was supposed to last until sometime this year, but they may extend it. But I think it's still free right now. They're offering it.
are they
Would you
teaching it
type it into
virtually?
the chat? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Are they teaching it virtually, or how are they doing
Yeah,
it?
they're doing. I think it's self-paced for so many, because it's so many hours you have to have. So
Yeah.
a portion of it is self-paced. And I think is it 8 hours? I believe. I think
Yeah.
it's 8 hours. I've taken it before. I think it's 8 hours, but I think half of it is self-paced, and then the other half is virtual.
That's kind of how our setup was. We had so
Yes.
many hours we had to do on our
Yeah.
own prior to the class. And then the
Yes.
day of the class, it was from 9 to 3 my time, because it was virtual, but the instructors were in a different area. There was 2 of them. And then you had to keep your camera on the entire time, obviously,
Yeah.
to actually get your certification. And at the very
Yeah.
end, there was like a small test kind of
Yes.
scenario. So yeah, it was virtual mix kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
some things have changed since I took it, because when I took Millhouse first aid training, it was all of it was in person for 2 days.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
took it over. It's over at Mills, not Millsaps. What's the other
Bellhaven.
company? Bellhaven. Yeah, it was 2 days in
Right.
class. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, Bellhaven. And that
Yeah.
was like probably like 2016 or
Yeah,
15, something like
16,
that.
17. Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
it's good to hear they have broken up a little bit to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Sharon, you said you missed the presentation. You couldn't, if you scroll up in the chat, you'll see where I posted the YouTube link to the video that I shared. I'll get it for you again if you want, and I can repost it if you'd like. Let me see. I could just scroll back up and repost it. That won't be hard. But if you find it helpful, that's great. Let's see. So as
And
far
sorry
as,
about your losses also, Sharon.
yes, as well, definitely, definitely. Sometimes, when you're dealing with a situation like that, whether it's suicide or a physical illness or something like that, sometimes if you feel more empowered, you can help someone else as a result of your loss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I reposted it so you can just bookmark that if you want. So as far as anyone who may have some particular experience with suicide, for any of you who might know someone who has either attempted or were successful with suicide, what I'm asking you to do, don't give me specific details as to how they did it, but I just would like to know, if you experienced that, what were your coping mechanisms?
I myself, I remember I was in Nebraska at the time, and my oldest daughter, I think it was like 2005 or 6 was the first time I actually had, other than myself trying to commit suicide, and it didn't happen, thank God for that. But to actually have someone that I knew personally went through this. So the young man was a dear friend of my daughter's. And so I was remember being at Walmart. I can still remember it just as vivid. And he was going through a transition because he was coming out of, they call it the closet. And so, which we knew he was gay, but anyway, so when I saw him, I was going in, and it was just a countenance of him. It didn't look right. He wasn't himself. And I said his name, and I said, "Are you okay?" Just as a mother into it, I didn't know, because at that time it wasn't in classes, but it was just talking. And he said, "Yeah." And so that I said, "Well, talk to me. You can talk to Ms. Mathis. You can talk to me." And so he said, "I know, but I'm okay." And he went on, and he just left. He walked off. So about 3 days later, I told my daughter, I said, "You get in contact with him because something's wrong. It just doesn't feel right. He's going through something, and it seemed like he's in a fog." And so she said, "Well, Mom," because they were, getting ready for college and everything. She said, "Well, I'm gonna do that." And come the next week, he had carbon monoxide, went in his car, sealed up everything, and he completed the mission.
Mm.
Um, and it did something to me. It's like, God, whatever, we have to find a solution. And so I started doing something. I started working with hospitals, doing different things to help. But I realized, because he was wealthy, people, we look at the persona of someone, but most people who commit suicide, and I, through my study, is that you find most of them that are dressed up, they'll look their best when they're feeling their worst. And so we can't just look at the person where that looked like they would commit suicide or what have you. Normally it'll be a different persona. They'll go totally dress up, and then you didn't realize, you hear so-and-so has committed suicide. And you say, well, they were looking so nice. They were talking, they were dressed, they were in a nice car, whatever. So we can't look at the status of a person. We have to listen to the content of what they're saying, regardless to what they wear or don't wear. Thank you.
Sharon, did you want to speak?
Yeah, she's unmuted now.
Okay, Sharon, you can go ahead if you want. Okay, might be some technical issues.
Yeah, just join anytime you want to, Sharon. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Or you can use the chat and we can just read what you say.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's discussion so far. We only got a few minutes left. So in addition to any resources that we put in the chat, are there any other resources you would like to add to the list? It could be local, national, online, doesn't matter.
There was one that I did not know existed, but it's across all 50 states, District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, and it's 211. And I was not aware of 211 prior to doing all of this. And each state has it to where, now granted, it covers mental health and provides an individual resources, but it also, I mean, if someone finds themselves homeless or, just a whole broad, spectrum of situations that people might be going through, including mental health. So 211 was a really good number that I learned recently.
Yeah, I've heard 211 because I know here in Mississippi, I think it's United Way. That's the number here. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm Googling it and it looks like it's connected with the United Way.
Yeah, it's a social service. And they have, the 211 for the most part has, where you can call for a plethora of needs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just not so specific to, unless they've updated that. It's just not, to suicide or anything like that, but
Right.
it may be.
It's all kinds of needs. I remember when it first came out, people would
Yeah.
call the number if they had trouble paying their light bill, and they were trying to find
Exactly.
an organization to help them. All kinds of things.
Yeah.
Let's see, Sharon. I see you typed Our Daily. Is that a resource? Oh yeah, Tracy, you're right about the former. I said Miss America earlier, but Miss USA. I know she won in 2019. I remember that. And she was only 30. She was only 30.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we just have to remember that there is no specific age. There's no specific type of person, race, anything
Right.
else, gender. Because a lot of times, we think of, I know when I was growing up, they used to like, from a ethnic standpoint, they used to tell, black folks don't do that. But black folks don't kill themselves, And so it made me feel weird because like when I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, why am I thinking about it right now? Because you know what I mean? I was like, but then
it didn't used to be as prevalent as it is now, among African Americans or blacks. It was more prevalent in other races than it was in African Americans, but and then I have this report that speaks to, I think you mentioned some data, some statistics, of just dealing with even younger African American young boys. I wish I had, maybe at some point I can just, share it or whatever. But suicide, I mean, it was just an eye opener for me. It really was.
Yeah.
There's another organization that I'm affiliated with. It's called American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Heard of them.
They have lots of different programs that targeted various age group, even children, youth, adults. And so they have, some really good programs that can focus on, different age groups that they can present to different age groups across the board in
Mhm.
schools, wherever.
Do they
Yeah.
still have a chapter in Mississippi? Because I know they used to do walks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I am a part of their, I am on their program committee, and so really they're really trying to build Mississippi. They'd asked me to serve as a board member, but right now because some other constraints, I wasn't able to do that. But I am working with them because I want to help them to build a chapter in Mississippi. So
Okay.
they have small percent, visibility in Mississippi. They still do the walks. I think that's out of the Madison area walks and things like that. But as far as a full-blown operating chapter, they do not. So hopefully I can help them, bring that to fruition within the next year.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Sharon said Our Daily Bread Ministries is a good resource of biblical messages. Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with Our Daily Bread Ministries, and for people of
Mhm.
faith, any sort of inspiration, something to give them a boost. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. So thanks for sharing that, Sharon. Let's see. Jocelyn said, yes, it's time that we listen to more than looking at what they are wearing, driving, or living in. We must go deeper. No, it will take a village to heal, be a part of. Yeah, it does take a village. That's one of the reasons why I keep saying, yeah, if you suspect that someone may be struggling, don't wait for them to come to you. You go ahead and go to them. Because
Right.
even though it's okay to say, if you're struggling, seek help, but some people just don't have the strength to do it. But if you see it first, to me, that's a
Mhm.
sign for you to step in.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That and another thing that was brought up, and I never put a lot of thought into it, was culture.
Yes.
Different cultures have different mindsets in regards to it. So some are not willing to talk about it more than others. And so culture plays a huge role in having that conversation.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
And in some cultures, it's more stigmatized than other cultures as well,
Mhm.
which is why they are more likely to hide it, because they don't want to be seen as less than, or whatever the case is. They don't want anybody to see them other than what they're portraying themselves to be.
Right.
And you're gonna put up that front for so long if you're really dealing with something.
Mhm.
You're
Hey,
gonna
guys, we only have about 5 more minutes. Let's try and conclude around 8 if we can.
okay. I'm
Anybody?
showing 7:58 on my end.
Yeah.
But so any final thoughts?
I think we should continue with these conversations and try to bring as many other people to the table. I would be willing to help, make that happen as well. So I don't know how I don't know if this is the first conversation is this the first conversation?
On this
No,
topic,
Okay.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I wouldn't say that we had a suicide prevention program on our end, but we've talked about it, in
yeah.
different.
I mean this Zoom
That's
session is this.
that's a good suggestion, because we have monthly meetings and we can do it again. We can do it again in a couple of months.
And I agree with that, because listening to all of y'all, I have gained so much insight and perspective, and it gets my own mind working about what I can do here locally. Just listening to what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
Right.
All
But
right.
yeah,
Who's
we can meet.
talking? Who's talking and where are you?
That was Tracy. I'm on the Mississippi coast.
Okay. So please take
Gulfport.
my number. I put my number, and because I'm trying to connect with everybody that's dealing with suicide prevention, and I travel there as well. So Miss Trace, would you take my number and give me email me?
Yeah,
I put it. I'm
can
Mango
sc-
Shanks. I'm Mango
you-
Shanks. Yes.
yeah, you can scroll back up a little bit and see it.
Yeah. But
At about 7:30.
yeah. But
Okay.
before we end, when I end the recording, I'm going to leave this up to give everyone time to take any notes, share any links, anything that you need to get from the chat. There's good information in there. I don't want anybody to miss anything at all.
Now I'm a little bit challenged with that. I was trying because I was on my computer, but it wouldn't let me talk.
Oh, okay.
So then I went to my phone. So I'm not real sure how to. I'm challenged there. Not sure how to capture the chat.
Oh, well, I tell you what, since you gave me your email address in the chat, I'll email you the contents, and then that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
I'll
so
take
much.
care of it. No problem. No
Yeah.
problem at all. So
Yeah.
let's see, it's 8 o'clock. We're gonna go
Uh-huh.
ahead and
Well,
close this out.
it's been a good program, and thank you everybody for turning out
Thank
and
Thank you.
you.
And we should
contributing.
thank
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
Thank
would you
you.
email that to everyone, Latasha? And thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
If I could see your
Thank you.
email address in Zoom when I finish the recording and everything,
Mhm.
I can use that information to email you.
Okay. All right, that'll be fine. So everyone, it was been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.